Hey, I'm Warren Sprouse. You're on the Bible Forum. It's Sunday night. It's July 30th, and we're here to regale you with the events of this week and the kinds of things that have popped up in the world that I think are important for us as Christians to understand, and other people as well, to learn a little bit about. We're starting out here tonight a little bit late because I haven't been able to get the Facebook thing to work. And again, I don't know why, but I'm not going to get overly concerned about it right now. It's recording. Maybe when it's all done recording, I can set that up and we can run it. There's been a lot of stuff going on this week. One of the things that I wanted to share with you is a part of just your interest, to ask you to pray. I have a dear friend in New York City, a missionary there to the Jewish community. His name is Vince Morgan. Known him forever. He wrote this week about a Pakistani woman that lives there in New York City, who is reporting demonic activity taking place in her home just in the last few months. She's married to a Muslim. He's not a Christian. And this man went through the house denouncing the demons in the name of Jesus. Well, of course, that's witchcraft. I mean, that isn't what you do. And it didn't work. The problem persisted, and it's actually become worse. A Pakistani pastor who's familiar with this sort of thing has been contacted. Apparently, this kind of activity began when the woman started actively witnessing to others about Jesus. There seems to be this direct connection. So we put it in the category of a spiritual battle. One day, the woman found a plastic container in her backyard with a note inside indicating that the contents were the ashes of a Russian woman. She's asking for prayer, both for herself and for her family. And Vince is asking us to pray, and I wish you would put that on your prayer list. This stuff is real. It's going on today. Doesn't happen in my world. Not yet. We watched this week on the political scene, the economic scene, the social scene. We're watching the unemployment numbers starting to drop. They've dropped by a number of 15,000 just in July. They've reached a seasonally adjusted 233,000 people apparently working for this week, July 9th through the 15th, when they took the report. This is the lowest unemployment claim since February. It marks an historic low, not seen since March of 1973. And along with this has come a 4.4% unemployment rate, which means statistically that we are very, very close to achieving full employment. The U.S. economy created roughly 222,000 new jobs in June, marking the single biggest payroll increase so far for 2017. There was a widespread increase in factory employment in July, with a 17% of manufacturers reporting an increase in employment and only 6% reporting a decrease. With sustained strength in the labor market, experts are saying we can expect the Federal Reserve to stay on track with its plan to raise interest rates for the third time this year. You realize interest rates haven't been raised for a long time. And every time you raise an interest rate incrementally, quarter of a point, whatever it might be, you put a little bit of a stall, a little hesitation, a little more pressure on the system, and employment will tend to reduce. Well, it isn't reducing. These are good numbers. This is good information. We're going in the right direction. On the social side, it was sad to note this week, but not unusual, that Governor Chris Christie in my home state of New Jersey signed a bill directing public schools to allow transgender students to use the restrooms and other facilities which correspond to their gender identity. Not what it actually is, but what they say it is, or what they want it to be, what they think it is. The question becomes, what does this mean for students? And I'm talking to the choir here. Have you never been in a high school lavatory? I mean, I rest my case. What did these kids do to deserve this sentence? With all this social engineering going on, our president took a stand against transgenders in the military. I think that was the only decision that could be made, the only rational decision that could be made. He's issued a policy that transgenderism is not something compatible with military duty. And all the kids say, duh. Apparently he believes the military is not a social laboratory. The cultural revolutionaries are up in arms over this, as you might have known. But look at all the reasons for denial of military duty that already exist. The military can reject you today if you're too tall. It can reject you if you're too short. It can reject you if you're too thin. It can reject you if you're too fat or too young or too old, or because you can't see or hear well enough. You can even be rejected because you are a glutton or because you have braces. Nobody ever complains about being discriminated against when they are rejected for these things. Nobody talks about fat shaming when he's rejected because he weighs 300 pounds. But if you're rejected from the military because you are transgender, then you're being discriminated against. Why? How is this different than being rejected for any other reason? And the answer is because transgender people are a favored political class. Can you say pup tents? Can you say stressful environments? It's military. There's a lot of togetherness and there's a lot of stuff going on. You can't have this nonsense. And the decision by the Obama administration to force the military to accept transgender people, pure politics, had nothing to do with the military. We watched again this week as the president's cabinet repositioned itself. An even more profane man than Donald Trump is now director of communications. And what does that mean? It means if the president wants you to know about Anthony Scaramucci, take that back. It says if the president wants you to know what he's thinking and where he's going, all you have to do is listen to Scaramucci. He'll tell you. If he has somebody he wants to get rid of, somebody he wants to quiet down, he's got an attack dog now. In 1 week, the media needed to bleep more comments than in the last year, and it ain't over. What's going on? Well, the president needed a pit bull. Somebody more like himself, worse than himself. And speaking of pit bulls, he's appointed General John Kelly as the new White House Chief of Staff. Did you like the way that was handled? As it started to unfold and the media was telling us the step by step, it looked like it was rude, crude, and indecent. Later on, when Priebus started talking, it wasn't exactly like that, was it? Unless he's just trying to cover it up and make it sound good. But it looks like this was a decision that was made a week and ahead of time, and that they choreographed this whole thing, and that it was done to keep everything on the lowest key possible. Now maybe this is the way it had to be done, I don't know. But it did look more like a mob hit than a peaceful transition. And I just have to wonder, what are we teaching our children? So why is all this happening? Not just with Trump, not just with the political core, but in the media, in business, in sports, and financial world, and even in the religious world. Just this week it was reported how celebrity pastor Carl Lentz, who pastors Hillsong Church in New York City, and megastar Justin Bieber, who apparently is a close friend of Lentz's, somebody that Pastor Lentz personally shepherds. These two men were photographed partying in a tavern. Shots and beers, crude language, sexually suggestive behavior, both of them laughing it up. Now, we euphemistically call this Christian liberty these days. I mean, you don't have the right to criticize my behavior. I have the freedom in Christ, But it used to be that Christians made certain that they did not suggest that sinful behavior was anything other than bad, anything other than destructive, anything other than a slap in the face of God. But now we have so-called Christians acting like non-Christians used to act. The major news in my mind this week came out in Israel. Biblical eschatology is back in the news, and in a very big way. Iran has missile factories, at least one, in neighboring Lebanon. I put a picture on the website in the what I call the carousel, the rotating pictures on the front, to show the proximity of these two nations. There's just a fence that runs down the middle. Iran's Navy continues to push our Navy's buttons in the Persian Gulf. They've been fired on a couple of times. The overt rioting over, around, and on the Temple Mount seems to have settled down, but it isn't going away. New violence was reported this weekend. Turkey is pushing her citizens to go to the Temple Mount to make a show. Jordan's King Hussein is appearing as angry as a wet hen. What does it all mean? Well, in the short run, in the politics of that region, it could mean almost anything. It doesn't mean anything good. But in terms of biblical eschatology and the total scheme of what God is doing, it says the time is short. Have you ever wondered where the biblical Canaanites went? Remember back in the Old Testament, God told Israel to kill them all? They didn't. They're back. I'll show you before we're done tonight. We're also going to be talking about the signature events of the Great Tribulation a little bit later on. You've heard about a couple of them. The chip that is now going to be embedded in the hands of willing employees, both to monitor their workday and so that they can buy food from the vending machines in the break room, and perhaps have passwords built in so when they go online, the computers of the company, and who knows what else, maybe get in and out the locked doors, we don't know. Well, they're not alone. The report on this one company's plan stimulated a number of other reports of how this is pretty far down the road in terms of becoming mainstream. And there's also the ability to fix damaged or corrupted DNA in a human embryo, eliminating congenital defects and so forth. And there's the technology to make anyone appear to be saying almost anything you want them to be saying in video format. I saw it done. Former President Obama speaking in side-by-side videos, 4 of them from all different ages and backgrounds, saying exactly the same things in a way no one who didn't understand what was going on, nobody would know that it wasn't a live broadcast. And in one of those, he was only about 20 years old. The tonal inflections, the mouth movements, the gesturing, it was all there. And it was very, very real. Could fake anybody. We're going to talk about it. Has it ever occurred to you that what we're seeing from Congress, the White House, the media, and many business types is not that far from what we saw in high school? It's an amazing thing. Intelligent, capable, powerful people saying and doing some of the dumbest things, and doing it all with an air of seriousness that decries what they're actually saying and doing. That rational people can stand in front of a TV camera and say some of these dumb, insane things with a straight face is one of the most amazing things in my lifetime. Everybody from the president to the senators to representatives to Supreme Court judges, all the way down the line. What's happening? I think what we're watching, this is just an overview, what we're watching is the products of our baby boomer population. And in many cases, their children acting out like 10-year-olds. Convinced their foolishness is real and that others take them seriously as long as they don't smile too much. Whatever happened to common sense, polite decorum, decency? If you take money from people who are earning it and you give it to people who either don't or won't, how long before you go broke? In a small family, in a large country, it's just a matter of time. So why are all these seemingly adult individuals so committed to the idea that everyone in America is entitled to health care? I understand why the liberal Democrats would be, but I don't understand everybody else. Have we lost our corporate minds? No. We are simply living through a cultural transition. These young people born and raised in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s who had no contact with the old days, with the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, back when character mattered. These people are now running the operation. Look at how often church things are in the news. Notice I didn't say Christian. I didn't even say religious, for fear I wouldn't be characterizing it accurately. Churches, denominations, used to fall into one of several categories. And those categories were small in number, less than 20. And you knew exactly what each one believed and where everybody stood. And when it came to Christian denominations, there was a time in my life when they weren't that much different. Today, more and more of those categories are melting away. There are the small, biblically conservative churches, the larger mainline or old line churches, and the very large contemporary churches. Do you know the differences? Would you recognize it if your church morphed or was beginning to morph into something else? Would you care? We're going to be looking at the signs of the emerging church in transition. And once all of that is firmly established, believe me when I tell you, it won't take much to blend it all into the final form of end times religiosity. So I ask you, what can you expect when your church is transitioning? We're going to look at that and a lot more. So strap yourself in. You do know all these discussions are recorded. They're in video and audio form, right? You can catch them all week on the Bible Forum website. If you miss any of that, you can click the Ustream link on the website in the video screen that you're watching, and that will take you to a website where all of them are. You can go to the YouTube page and you can see them all there. And you can check out the Facebook page for the 2-hour version, as well as individual videos throughout the week. I upload them each day, a different one. And then there are the podcasts. They're on our website. You go to thebibleforum.net and you click the link for podcasts. They're there. Subscribe. On the right hand side, you can put your email address in. You subscribe to the podcast. When I upload them, you'll get them, or at least you'll be notified. I don't know exactly how that works. As soon as I figure out how to tie them into larger podcasting outlets, we'll get all that worked out. But I don't know how to do that. If you know how to do that, please let me know. We'll get it worked out. So we got to get strapped in. We got a lot to talk about tonight, a lot to do, and we've got a little bit of time to do it in. So stay tuned.